Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I think people are starting to trickle back in. So whenever you're ready, Andrew.
Wonderful. And you've still got my screen sharing, haven't you? So we can all
Yep, yep, looks
get
good.
started. Okay, lovely. Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. Just to introduce myself first, my name's Andrew Caffrey, and I'm a Google certified trainer and innovator based in the UK. And what I do now is I work with a non-profit, and we focus on training teachers and lecturers to make the best use of technology. And of course, within our remit, that includes the use of assistive technology across the whole of sort of the Google ecosphere. I'm going to just, in my slide, there's a video next one. I'm going to just skip that for a minute. I'm just going to come back to that a bit later. What we're going to do in this presentation is look at some of the different accessibility tools that live within the Google ecosystem. And I'm going to start by looking at the Chrome browser. So when you access the internet, a lot of people would choose to use the Chrome browser as their way onto the internet, whether they're on a Windows machine, whether they're on a Chrome device, whether they're on a Mac. Very often they'll have the Chrome browser installed. And one of the things that Google have been focusing on is to build accessibility right into the heart of the Chrome browser. So rather than having to use additional tools, making things within the browser that help users access the internet and access the content that's being displayed. So I'm getting started into this then. The first one is something that's actually quite well hidden inside Chrome and is getting upgraded all the time. And that's something called reading mode. So I'm just going to drop out of my slides for a minute, and I'm on the internet here. I'm on the Chrome browser here, and here I am on a website. So in this case, I've just gone to the BBC News website, and because I'm in the Chrome browser, on my top bar here, I can turn on reading mode, and that sort of brings this side panel in here. And what the reading mode is doing is it's stripping away all of the content around that article and just picking up on the text that's within the article. And then it's allowing me some choices as to how I view and how I access that text within the article. And so at the top here, you can see I can choose my font. So if there's a particular font that is suitable for me as a user, popped into a Lexend font there that's particularly accessible. I can change my font size on this text. And in terms of color combinations, if there's a particular color combination that works for me, then I can access that color combination in there. And once I've done these settings once I've found the settings that are appropriate for me as a user, then they sort of stay there. And then as I browse the internet, I can go to different web pages. I'll just go to a different article. Cost of living, that could be interesting. Let's get an article up from BBC News again. And once I've got a page, I can again just activate reading mode, and it will bring in the sort of the style I've set to help me access and to read the text from that particular page. And this is built right into our browser, so I'm not using any third-party tools here. I'm right within the browser. And one of the theories is building it into browser level means it's going to work on every website. Anything that the end user, our students, our users are using, they can access this, bring this up. Right now, this is what it looks like in Chrome, but Google have already announced, and coming in on the next versions of Chrome, is an added screen reader to this feature. So right now, I'd have to use a screen reader to do that. But very shortly, we're going to see a big sort of play button up the top here. When you press play, a natural sounding voice will read that text back to you. So we add the audio piece into the screen reader. If you're not seeing it in your Chrome browser, so I've got this pinned. So I've got a little pin at the top here, and I've sort of pinned it so I can access it quickly. If a user isn't seeing that, if you go to the menu, it's in More Tools, and reading mode lives there. So the first time you go to it, you have to go to the menu, More Tools, reading mode. Then once you've got it, you can just pin it. And when you pin it, it just appears in your top bar here as a button. So you can just get to it time and time again quickly. So that's reading mode inside the Chrome browser. Currently, it's sort of a text-based piece with the voice coming very shortly. Let's look at some other features while we're in the Chrome browser. I'm going to just flip back to my news article here. Let's close reading mode down. Let's find another article. In fact, let's go to this one. The next one is something we call quick answers. Whenever you highlight any text within Chrome, so we can make this work. Whenever you highlight any text within Chrome and right-click, it brings up this sort of menu of choices. And what you'll start to see now is this dictionary come up, and that's a setting called quick answers. And it's turned on by default, to be fair, so it will work for most users unless they've chosen to turn it off. But it gives them the meaning of the word, and then they can listen to the voice pronouncing that word back again. It also gives me options then within the menu depending on what that word is, to potentially translate or look that word up, depending on what I've picked and what more detail I want to go into on a particular word. So Chrome answers within the Chrome browser work at that level. Next feature, which we'll mention, is sort of what about accessibility needs additional features. So in our menu here, we can go to menu and we can go to settings. And that brings up sort of the settings for the Chrome browser. And what this page looks like will depend upon the device you're on and also the controls that the organization you're on have put in place. But as you can probably see on the left-hand side, we've got accessibility as an option here. When I go to accessibility, it's got some accessibility features that are built into my device. We'll talk about those later. But we've also got the ability to add accessibility features from the Chrome Web Store. You will have users who've got particular needs that might be very, very specific. And so we have the Chrome browser itself, but to add another level of accessibility on top of that, we have the ability to use Chrome extensions. And on this page, there's a range of Chrome extensions. Some of them have been built by Google itself. Some of them are built by third-party organizations or companies. And they allow us to add this unique layer of accessibility, again, adding it to the Chrome browser. So we're adding it to all of the web. So if I particularly needed a screen shader, if I needed input tools because I was using third-party tools such as a Braille reader, if I needed particular volume settings, speech settings, language tools, all these different tools can be used to help sort of make that Chrome experience more personalized to a user. Chrome extensions are what we're looking at there. And when a user installs a Chrome extension, it follows them around. So if they then go and sign into a different computer, if they're in the university, they sign into another computer, or they go home and they sign into a device, anything they've previously installed will just follow them around again. So once they've sort of made some selections of the tools that suit them and their learning needs, then they can just sort of grab them and add them, and then they'll just follow around and be on the device. So at this level, we're just at this point just focusing on some things that are built in to our Chrome browser. Let me come back to my slides. I've talked about reading mode. I've talked about text to speech, which is what's coming next. Excuse me, text to speech, which is what's coming next within Google Chrome browser. So mention that. And then reading mode, talked about full page zoom is in there. Translate built into Chrome browser. Just someone want to open a web page in a different language. And you've probably seen that yourselves when if you open a web page that's another language that's not your native language, it will give you the option to translate now natively in browser. Browser extensions and quick answers. So these are all browser built features around Chrome browsers. As I'm going through today, feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we go about any of the features I'm showing or any of the questions you might have about Google across the range of Google tools. But that's the Chrome browser, which is probably our most universally used tool, regardless of device that's out there. Now let's talk a little bit more about devices. So we're going to move on. And the next one I'm going to talk about is Chrome OS. And you might think, well, what is Chrome OS? So Chrome OS is our operating system. And historically, it was used on Chromebooks. So it's what Chromebooks use. But more frequently, we're also seeing it on other devices because we have a tool out there called Chrome OS Flex. And Chrome OS Flex allows you to take an old device. So maybe you've got an old Windows laptop or a MacBook or just some old computer that you've got somewhere, and you put a memory stick in and you add the Chrome OS, the operating system, onto it, and it effectively turns that device into a Chromebook. I really like it because from a sustainability point of view, I'm a geographer as my subject, so I'm more environmentally focused. And I really like the idea of just taking devices that often are e-waste and turning them back into useful devices for students to use. Particularly as we see things in the Windows world, we've got the Windows 10 upgrade coming, and lots of devices can't take the new Windows operating system. So it's a logical solution to get a memory stick. It's free to download Chrome OS Flex, stick it in the computer, put Chrome OS Flex on it, and just give it a longer lifespan. So when we're talking about Chrome OS as an operating system, we're talking about things that Chromebooks use, and then we've got these Chrome OS Flex devices, these older devices out there as well that also use Chrome OS. And that means that rather than using Windows, when you start the machine up, it's running Chrome OS. And Chrome OS has accessibility built in as well. So we've talked about the Chrome browser. Now we're talking about the Chrome OS operating system. Lots of different things built in. I'm on a Chromebook, so I'm going to show you on my device. But lots of things built in at the device level. Now, some of these things we've already seen at the Chrome browser level. So you might say, why is it sort of there twice? If we can do it in the browser, why are we doing it on the device? The advantage of obviously doing it on a device is that's going to work offline. So if we take a Chromebook or a Chrome OS Flex device and we've got the accessibility on the device, things like the dictation mode, things like some of the screen reader, that's going to work even when we come off the internet. Whereas obviously the Chrome browser tools only work when we're on the web. So I'm on a Chromebook here myself, so I can go to my menu, and in my menu, I can see accessibility down there in my menu as a button. If it's not there, if you've got a user that goes, well, I haven't got accessibility as an option, they might have to go into settings here. And then in the accessibility settings, the first option is to turn the accessibility settings on in the menu. So if they're using a Chrome OS Flex or Chromebook device, they're not seeing accessibility as an option, it's in settings, turn it on, stick the slider over, and then that gives you access to a range of different accessibility settings that users might want to turn on for their own particular needs. So taking through some of these, we've got tools like text-to-speech, and there's two sort of versions of that. Chrome Vox reads the entire screen, so it will read everything on my screen to me in an audio sense. It will speak it back to me. If I've got a screen reader or an alternative device plugged in, it will push it through that as well. Select to speak is a sort of variation on that, where I can select on the screen with my mouse or my cursor, where is it I want it to read, and it will just read that area out. So it's a more selective tool. But those both give us text-to-speech capabilities. Moving down the list, in terms of the display, what that looks like, we have some options around color correction and color inversion for people with visual needs who need to see the device in inverted colors. We've got our screen magnifier and our docked magnifier. And so docked magnifier allows me to have this area at the top, as you can see, where it's sort of highlighting where my mouse is. So I've still got my whole screen on view, but I've got the magnifier at the top there for me to use. That's docked magnifier. So those are my display settings. I can also, within the Chrome browser over here, play around with the font, the default font. So if I want to increase font size of all web pages, I can come across to the Chrome browser to do that. Back to my settings, display. Then I might want to change my input settings. So my keyboard and input settings. So I've got the ability to turn on an on-screen keyboard, use with the touchscreen. Dictation mode, I personally use this. So dictation mode, I have down the bottom bar here, living on my device, there's a little button on there, and that allows me to dictate and voice type anywhere on the web. So not just in a particular product, anywhere there's a cursor input, whether that's on a website, whether that's on a Google form, inside a document, I can just click that button and start talking, and it will start typing in what I'm saying. So dictation mode, I can then use things like sticky keys. So if I'm struggling to press two keys at once, sticky keys allows me a time span to press one key, then the other, and it will take them as a single key press. Useful with keyboard shortcuts with people with accessibility. I might want to use some highlight features and some keyboard settings. Just these are, again, fairly niche to help me, again, access particular tools. So I might want to change my keyboard and input. And then audio. I might want to change my audio. I might need mono audio because I'm using a certain device with mine. I might want to play sounds and startups, or I might want to turn on live captioning. And live captioning turns on voice captions wherever there's audio playing through. So whether that's in a YouTube video, whether that's in a different video, something shared through Google Drive, maybe you're just on the web and there's a video pops up, it will start translating that across start showing the audio captions on that automatically. And I know lots of features, and some of you might be using captions in Zoom, have a button, but this sort of overrides that and puts it on everything. And again, it's this idea of just putting accessibility at the most logical level rather than having to turn it on every time you go to something. And again, options there to play around with text size and caption preferences when you turn that caption preference on. So a range of sort of accessibility tools here built in at device level when we talk about Chrome OS. Let's come back to my slides. I think I've covered most of those. The other one I didn't mention on there was that Chrome OS has, of course, its built-in PDF readers. So if I am in my files, let me find a PDF, and I open up a PDF from my downloads. Yeah, let's find a PDF. I can then access that PDF. And what we do within the Chrome operating system, Chrome OS, is we use an OCR, an optical character reader, to enable us to select text within that PDF. So as you can see, the text is selectable, and that means that I can then bring that out, export it, use it through a screen reader, use it in reading mode with Google Chrome, bring the two together, and start to make that PDF more accessible. PDFs are a real challenge to us sometimes with accessibility. And that's why we built the PDF reader on the Chromebooks and into the Chrome browser to enable us to sort of be able to access that, because as a tool, sometimes they just become a blocker to various accessibility tools. Added to that, if you ever download a website, or you on a website and you file downloads a PDF, we now take all the metadata with that to make it more accessible to reading mode. So we built some accessibility not only into reading PDFs, but into downloading PDFs across Chrome OS and the Chrome browser. So that's Chrome OS. So Chromebooks, Chrome OS Flex devices, all of those sort of devices and the sort of features around those. Next up, I'm going to talk about Google Workspace. And before I jump into this section, I'm going to show a really short video. Please let me know if the audio doesn't play through. I think it will. I know this video is based on someone who's a younger learner. We're often working with older learners, but the accessibility features obviously don't change as our learners getting older. And it looks at a learner using some of the features together to support their learning. So I'm going to put this video on. Let's get this up and running.
Not sure if there's any audio coming through there.
Is there no audio coming through?
No.
Okay, I will talk over the video very briefly because we don't need to see all of it. So this, as you can probably see from the text, is a student who is at school, attending a normal secondary school, and she is, I'll move that screen, and she is using, in this case, a Chromebook, and she's also using a Braille reader plugged into a Chromebook. So her Chromebook is in what we saw earlier. It's got the select to speak turned on, so she's selecting pieces. It's reading it through the Braille reader to her to enable her to work at the same speed as other learners. So one of the key things here is sort of using these tools plugged in together. She was able to access the curriculum in the same rate and the same speed as other learners in her classroom. So she's using a standard, we can see on the screen here, she's using a sort of standard Chrome device, and then this particular reader plugged into it through USB is allowing it to do that. She's also doing voice typing. So when she wants to input back in, she voice types in. So she's using the tools sort of joined together to enable her to access those tools. And that's sort of what the video shows if the audio is not coming through. Great, let's get back in and carry on talking through the tools. So we're coming on next to Google Workspace. So I know that selected people on the call here might be using Google Workspace, and that's Google's productivity tools. So Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, which obviously are available on the web as a platform for people to use. So I'm going to look at what's in there in terms of accessibility. And across the Workspace team, they've been focused for a long time on attempting to build accessibility tools that sit across platform. So sit across all of those things, rather than building, an immersive reader into just Docs, building it at a high level so that it works across all of the tools we're building. But then obviously certain tools require certain features and have certain obvious additional features. So let's talk about some of the accessibility in Workspace. I'm actually presenting here in Google Slides, and because I'm presenting in Google Slides, that gives me access to some of the accessibility features. So I'm in Slides. That allows me to go to Captions and to turn on Captions, firstly. And I know now some of you might be seeing a rather odd double caption, because if I'm in Zoom, you can turn Zoom captions on as well. But this allows me to have live captioning while I'm presenting off a slide deck. And I can choose through the options where these captions appear. So through my captions preferences, at the moment they're set to top, and the text size is extra large, but I could move them to the bottom of the screen, and I could change the size as appropriate for the learners in my room. And so even when I'm just in a room presenting, I've got slides running, if I turn on accessibility, that helps people who maybe need to get that visual clue as to what I'm saying. It can also, with some of our younger learners, help promote reading There's a lot of research around the idea that subtitles and captions, because a lot of you right now are possibly reading along, help to increase people's reading speed. And that's probably more appropriate with our younger learners, but I think it works for all, and we have it turned on. We've also got the same feature inside Google Meet, where individual users can choose to turn captioning on. And then depending on the version of Google Meet they're using, they can choose to translate those captions in Google Meet. So they can view the captions in a different language to the presenter that's speaking. And that really helps us with students with additional learning, additional language, because they can view those captions. And for that reason, we actually have a Google Meet, specific Google Meet mode, which is called companion mode. So if you're going into a Google Meet call, you can join Google Meet normally, a video call like we're on now, where we'd all appear. But joining in companion mode is ideal when you're in the same room as the people. And at first, people were a bit put off by that. They were, why do you want to join a Google Meet if they're in the room with them? Well, actually, maybe what I want to do is use the accessibility tools in Google Meet. So I want to use captions. I want to translate what they're saying and watch that on my screen while they're in the room presenting with me. So Google Meet and companion mode go together in that respect. And again, that's our video tool within Google Workspace. Mentioning some other features, let's come out and look at a few others. So we mentioned Google Slides already. We mentioned Meet, but let's look at Google Docs, which is our word processing tool. So I'm just going to go into docs.new. In the browser at the top line, docs.new makes a blank Google Doc. It's a little shortcut to get you into Google Docs quickly. And now I'm in Google Docs. I can use some tools from the menu again here. So I can go Tools, and again, I've got a variety of tools, accessibility. I've got accessibility built in at this level, or I might choose to use voice typing at this point. And you might think, well, haven't we seen voice typing before in dictation down the bottom? You could use the button at the bottom. I could, but some people are not going to be using Chromebooks. So this builds it again back in at the browser level so that any user coming into Google Docs can do voice typing. And so again, I can select to speak, and then I can voice type to my device, and it will type up what I'm saying, full stop, new paragraph. This is a test of voice typing, full stop. And I can speak punctuation in, and it will pick that up. One interesting thing about voice typing across all of Google is that it's over time, it learns how you're speaking. So initially, if it's not as brilliant with your voice, maybe I've got very clearly a Birmingham accent from the UK, but over time, because I've spoken to it enough, it starts to learn some of the things I say. And over time, if you keep changing words, it'll start to learn, okay, that's probably the word you mean next time around when you say that. It'll just improve each time it gets. So there's a bit of personalization around voice typing across Google Workspace. And so that was in tools and voice typing. We've also got obviously tools and accessibility there as well. So again, we can put additional features within Google Docs. So we might want to turn on the Braille support at this level, the screen reader or the magnifier support just in the Docs level. We could do it on device, we could do it at a browser, but we can also do it within the product itself in case that's the only level we can get to. Maybe I'm in an organization, we've got iPads, I'm on Safari, so all those other options aren't available. So I'm going to turn it on within the product itself. So we can do that at product level within that area. And we've also added accessibility within the core of what a Google Doc looks like now. So if I insert an image into this, I'm going to just do insert image. And for now, I'll just search the web and I'll find a nice picture of a cat for today for my demo. And I put that cat picture in. Whenever I insert an image now into Google Docs, it will give me the image options. And that gives me some ability to alter the images that I've got, including alternate text. And that allows us to build alt text into a document. So if we've got screen readers for people with visual impairments going through this document, it's going to read the alternate text instead of being floored by the image. So when we're building Google Docs for our learners, it's important we think about, okay, have I gone through? Have I used alt text as we go through? Have I used sort of the features that are built in there to make that document more accessible? So those are some of the features that are built into Google Docs. I'm conscious that I'm running low on time. So my last of the ones to talk about now is Android. I won't show the video because it doesn't play through. We know audio doesn't play through now, but that will get me some time back. So obviously Google's also responsible for Android, the operating system that people use predominantly on mobile phones. And once again, just like, I'll skip this video, just like we saw in Chrome, we're trying to build the accessibility in at the device level. And so within the settings on an Android phone, you can get into the accessibility settings again and activate certain features. Key ones you might want to talk about, things like TalkBack, and that's another version that is a screen reader. Again, it reads the screen. You can turn on voice access to control the device entirely with your voice. We've got things like BrailleBack to allow you to fit a Braille keyboard. It actually works through Bluetooth from the device. And even within particular products, things like our camera now can be voice activated. So if you activate it to take a selfie, it will describe what it's seeing before it takes the picture. So we can use some of our more later features to help people with less visibility access things. So even when users are coming into a mobile device, it's thinking about the accessibility on that. If they're not seeing accessibility features on their mobile device, when they go to settings, if there isn't much choice in accessibility, it will prompt them to download an additional app called Android Accessibility that brings more features. A lot of devices download it by default, but some of the lower end devices, it's sort of additional download before it sort of turns it on. And again, that's turning it on a device level to help our users. And those are some of the key features across Google Workspace. I'll try to be quite broad as I go through today. And I've also tried to allow some time to answer questions. So I've done sort of about 30 minutes, but I've allowed sort of 10 minutes for Q&A. So if anyone's got any questions, I'm just looking through the chat now to see what's come in. Somebody mentioning that they like voice typing. That's good to hear. Someone says, I find students know very little about what the browsers can do. Yeah, it's really interesting to watch the skill level of young people. We often hear, or when I'm out and about and I'm training people, I often hear people talking about the term digital natives as being sort of a reason why maybe younger people can access technology. But in reality, unless you show people how things work, they're not going to know that these features exist or that are there. And the small amount of time it takes, I've only spent 30 minutes today going through those features, but the small amount of time it takes to show one of our learners how some of the features work, it opens up that window to them. So it is important to sort of think about how are we going to train some accessibility into students. Someone's pointed out, I agree, Greg, PDFs are indeed a nightmare for accessibility. And we ideally wouldn't want to use them, but we're trying to work ways to make them, break them down, make them more accessible, and use that OCR reader that we've sort of built into Chrome browser now to make them highlightable, text selectable, and therefore accessible through screen readers. Any other questions from anybody? I'll give it a minute or two for anyone in the chat.
That was a great session, Andrew. Thank you so much. I'm wondering if maybe this is a bit of a cheeky question. Could you give us a little idea of kind of what's coming up for in terms of accessibility and kind of next steps and roadmaps and that kind of thing with Google? What's kind of the upcoming bits and bobs?
Yeah, in terms of things that are sitting on our roadmap, I'm trying to think. I mean, the biggest one on the roadmap is bringing the voice reader now to Chrome. So I'll say the biggest sort of announcement is bringing the on-screen reader directly into the Chrome browser, which means putting it on device so that anyone can just press play and listen to what's on that page without the need for Chrome extensions or third-party tools. I think that's a big shift that we're sort of seeing in terms of that space. And then beyond that, obviously, as I was in for part of the previous presentation, we're starting to see, of course, the impact of AI coming into our tools. And you might have seen when I was Google Docs there, probably sort of helped me write floating around. So we're starting to look at the sensible integration of AI into Google Workspace. Google are taking what we would describe as a very cautious approach to that. So we have Gemini as a tool that people can access on the web, but we're really sort of focusing on some key areas at this point. And you might have seen more recently at Google's event last week, we announced Learn LM, which is a dedicated, and I think I used the PDF from that in my demo, but a dedicated learning model for helping people to understand and access and learn about content using AI. We think that AI has a potential to be a real leveler in this space because you can ask a question, it can give you a response. You can say, I don't quite understand that. Can you explain it another way? And it can give you another response. And this idea of sort of personalized coaching has real potential to support all learners, because at the moment you could argue that different learners have different access to different levels of support, and therefore it can be a disadvantage to some people. So that idea we think has real potential. It helps us make learning more accessible, and it helps us personalize learning. because once it understands your learning style, it can offer more support in that space. I think we're really at the sort of the start of learning what that looks like across our tools. And we're taking a really sort of measured approach to sort of get it right as we go. There is some pilot out in some of our tools. We're piloting some AI tools across Google Classroom within our K-12 space. And then we're piloting Notebook LM as a research sort of learning tool, which is a US only at this point in time in that space. So it's really sort of at that pilot phase to see where that intersection of AI and accessibility sits. But we think there's a lot of potential in that space, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I love the idea of, like you said, kind of leveling the playing field. They're kind of making it more accessible and equal for everyone. So totally. I do see Sonia has her hand raised if you want to ask a question, Sonia.
Sorry, hi. I'm just wondering about the operation system. You mentioned that. I thought that was brilliant. I have an old laptop, and when you mentioned that, I was thinking, well, that would be great to kind of update it. Does it make the features work better overall if you have that operation system?
It doesn't change your, you still go on the internet via the Chrome browser, like that doesn't change in that respect. But what it tends to do is, what we tend to find is that over time devices slow, historically over time devices slow down, don't they? The operating systems get bigger and the device slows down. Obviously our Chrome OS is a very light touch operating system. So usually the device speeds back up again. So normally you just get a faster running device with Chrome OS, even though it's an old device. And then obviously what you get to is the Chrome browser, and then you're on the internet, so then you can do what you want to on the internet. Bear in mind that with Chrome OS, you're effectively working everything on the internet. So it's not got downloadable pieces of software, and think carefully about that. Yeah. The way that it works in terms of actually doing, turning your old device into a Chrome OS is you download Chrome OS onto a memory stick and you stick it in. And the first choice it gives you is you want to just try it. So you can actually just try it running from the memory stick. So you can see what that experience is like first. And then it gives you, and then you could start it up again and say, actually, no, I definitely want this now. I want to install it. So what I would always recommend is you just try it first, run it off the memory stick, see what it's like, decide, okay, does everything work? Does my mouse still work? Do my pointers and everything work? Okay, this is fine. I can understand how this works. I'll do it. Because obviously when you install it on the device, it wipes up your operating system. So bear in mind, you're making a big shift there. So I recommend always try it first off the memory stick. If you're going to, if the device is totally dead anyway and it's no longer working, well, you've got nothing to lose, have you? So, and Chrome OS is a free download from our website. The only time there's any cost involved in Chrome OS is in organizations who want to control their Chrome OS devices. They have to have a management license in place. But if it's individual use, students or you yourself doing your laptop later, that's free to do.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Some other questions popping in. Do we want me to go next? Those come in now. Somebody asked me about Google Classroom, whether it's progressing as a VLE. I think that is we certainly when I was in the school teaching in geography when Google Classroom first launched, and at the time it felt like a very basic VLE. Sort of the features in there were really simple. There wasn't a lot it could do. It was Google's first foray into that space. It's certainly grown over the years, and it's now a sort of much fully featured, much fully formed product within that space. As a tool, it's got things like originality reports now, where it cross-checks all the students' work against an online repository and against the web to see if they've copied anything. It's got all these features sort of built in that have come over time. So certainly if you looked at it years ago and then you look at it today, it certainly shifted it up a gear somewhat as it progressed over time. I would say it probably is now for most, certainly in K-12 school space, it is a fully featured VLE. We also have a second product called Google Assignments that allows you to take the features of Google Classroom and plug it into some other system, whether you're using Blackboard, whether you're using Canvas, whether you've got a Moodle that you're using. So where you've got an existing VLE that you're quite happy with, and that's all very nice, but you actually want to steal some of those classroom features, you can plug them in now with a plugin called Assignments from Google Workspace. So that's a sort of a nice hybrid mix for some of you. That was, I think I answered that question. Anyone, did I miss anything? Someone asked what would be the best access to recording a voice presentation? Within Google Workspace, two different ways of doing it. One way would be in Google Slides, there's an option called record. So you can just record yourself in slides and it sort of records a little movie of you presenting your slides and your little face in the corner. So it can do it in slides. Or if you want to present more than just slides, You could just go into a Google Meet call on your own if you have the recording features. Only certain editions have recording. You could go into a Meet call on your own, share your screen and just record yourself presenting. That would give you the whole screen if you wanted to, if you need to record, sort of showing people how to do things like I just did. I wasn't solidly in slides all the way through, so I couldn't just be in slides record. So I hope that answers that question for recording.
Yeah, cool, Andrew. And I just
yeah.
have, there's a bit of time, so I just have a bit of a, I guess,
Okay.
a kind of a personal question. I just wonder kind
Yeah,
of
go
your
for it.
story, how you got into AT and how you got into Google. It just seems like a cool job. So just wondering your story.
Yeah, so I was a teacher working in a school teaching geography in a school in the UK, and in 2016 I went to a Google cert. I was already a Google certifications for teachers, so I had completed my level 1 and my level 2, and I went to an Innovator Academy, and I went to Mountain View. I went to Google's head office to complete an Innovator Academy over there. And at that point, unknown to me, Google were looking to expand that program and asked me if I wanted to come and work with that program. So I work with Google on their Certified Innovator Academy program, which is a global program where we try to solve problems in technology. We try to solve problems in education using Google's design thinking methodology. And of course, once you start looking at problems in education, you very quickly get into an accessibility space, because when you start talking to teachers about what are the issues in your classroom, it doesn't take very long for that to be a question around accessibility. So a lot of the work within that program is sort of focused on that. And our outputs of that program are too. Sometimes we go back to Google and say, hey guys, you can make this better if you just did this. This little fix would make it so much better for us. So sometimes we push back to Google from that program, and sometimes we look at third-party tools. But I work with that program, and that sort of developed my role. And I obviously came away from the classroom, and now I'm a sort of trainer, and I work with a range of people that do what I do. So it's been a really interesting shift. Really enjoyed it there.
Yeah, cool. Good story. It's interesting. Everyone has kind of their own pathways into the field, so it's cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think unless there's any final questions, I don't see anything coming through. Thank you so much for your time,
Wonderful.
Andrew, and kind of wonderful kind of practical tips to a whole lot of things we can leave here today, kind of changing in our own practices. So very helpful and very useful.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Andrew.